Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. 16 Russian targets are in flames. The Rosneft superfactory has exploded after a devastating strike. Ladies and gentlemen, the situation in the Russia-Ukraine conflict has officially entered a new, brutal, and tragic phase. While the whole world is holding its breath watching Russia's spring offensive, a strong response has been sent, saying that Russia will have to burn. The night of April 16 was not just an ordinary raid. It was a military earthquake, with 16 strategic targets wiped out in just 24 hours. From the impenetrable air defense systems in Crimea, the advanced Iskander missile bases, to the blazing inferno at the deep oil refinery inside Russia, all were brought down by Ukraine's new generation of drones. Ukraine is advancing rapidly and striking harder than ever before. A brutal and powerful message has finally been sent to Putin, and that's exactly what the Russian president did not want to hear. Russia is sinking deeper, into the abyss of defeat. Everything belonging to the Russian military will burn, from the territories under control to deep inside the borders. As Ukraine launches a brutal tactic that is devastating the rear areas, paralyzing the front lines, and wiping out all the resources that Russia possesses. Medium-range strikes have officially begun, and Ukraine is taking advantage of them to make 2026 the most devastating year of losses for Russia ever. If Putin needs clear proof, the Maksabot forces declared it in a post on April 16 on X, asserting that Ukraine has adopted a new strategy that Russia is completely powerless to counter. These birds have sent a sharp warning that the invaders' time is up. The engines are revving, and they better buckle up because punishment is coming down hard. This is not just a warning about the future, but words that have created a terrifying shockwave throughout the Kremlin. They appeared right after a night of intense attacks on Russian equipment and infrastructure in the occupied areas, at a scale and intensity that Russia has never seen before. On the night of April 16, Ukraine dealt a critical blow to Putin. The list of targets included 16 strategic military sites stretching from Donetsk, Crimea, and even deep inside Russia itself. All of them were carefully selected to break Russia's war effort as it was trying to launch a spring offensive. These targets included air defense systems related to Iskander ballistic missile bases, oil depots burning fiercely, and the logistics infrastructure of the Black Sea Fleet being completely destroyed. If a target was Russian and within range, Ukraine destroyed it in just one night using medium-range drones, which are quickly becoming the game-changing factor Ukraine needs to turn the tide on the battlefield. The momentum of the war is shifting dramatically, and real footage has shown us why. In Donetsk and Crimea, Azov's First Corps is operating FPV drones over key logistical facilities. In the footage shared by Anton Jurichenko, we see through Ukraine's eyes with sharp, colorful images, showing the drone penetrating deep into Russian-controlled Donetsk to directly target critical infrastructure. Russia's air defense system seems completely paralyzed. Time and again, the drones relentlessly attack the convoys. Armored vehicles, troop assembly points, and every link in the logistics network help Russia maintain pressure in Donetsk. Ukrainian drones can now penetrate deep and fly with incredible precision behind the front lines. They wipe out supply convoys on critical logistics routes that Russia is forced to use for its spring offensive. Mark Zabud also released a 6-minute video proving that not only trucks or soldiers were hit, but even the defense systems collapsed. The story has always been like that. Deep inside the occupied territories, Ukrainian drones continuously find targets without facing any significant resistance from Russian air defenses. Instead, what we see is that those air defense systems themselves are destroyed by the very weapons they are supposed to eliminate. The fire blazes fiercely, and buildings are reduced to smoke and dust. If it can help the Russian war machine operate, it will become a target for the drones that Ukraine has refined and fully mastered. What happens in these footage is the key for Ukraine to win, and it takes us back to those raids that day. On the 16th day of April, 16 of Putin's military targets were crushed. Look at Donetsk, the focal point of a spring offensive that was supposed to cripple the artillery belt. This is the area that Putin desires more than anywhere else because of its mineral wealth and the symbolic value that he always claims belongs to Russia. Donetsk plays a central role in Putin's ambitious peace demands, but Ukraine is unwilling to concede any territory. Russia is paying with its own blood to seize it. Reports on April 18 revealed that Russia is losing 316 soldiers for every square kilometer gained in Donetsk. That tragic number will only rise as Ukraine's mid-range attack strategy reaches its peak. Among the targets in Donetsk, the Osik air defense system that Russia deployed in the Vodyan settlement was completely wiped out. Ukraine also directly targeted Russia's Rubicon unit, a force specially established to become the most dangerous drone experts under Putin. Rubicon aspired to become the master of drone warfare, but Ukraine has proven who truly dominates the game. On April 16, Ukraine attacked a drone facility in Han, which Rubicon used as a warehouse and gathering point. The #1 separate center of Ukraine's unmanned systems forces was behind this attack, directly crippling Russia's drone strategy right at the stronghold. A bad night for Russia became even more disastrous when air defense units and aircraft in Donetsk caught fire, while at the same time Ukraine also launched a strong attack on Crimea. Once an impregnable stronghold in Putin's strategy since 2014, the Crimean Peninsula was considered absolutely safe from all types of Ukrainian weapons. This was once where Russia assembled troops and equipment to send across the Black Sea. But after more than 4 years of war, Ukraine has become stronger, developed new types of weapons, and turned the Black Sea routes into a dead zone for a fleet that has lost 1/3 of its warships and had to flee from the main port. On April 16, Ukraine once again proved that they can inflict pain on Russia right in areas where Russian targets are spread across the peninsula. The Magzabut forces reported that Ukrainian drone operators destroyed a pair of bases deploying Iskander missile systems. These deadly weapons frequently bombard Ukraine, but Ukraine is getting better at taking down Iskander missiles before they can leave the launch pad. In an attack on April 15, Russia was powerless as Ukraine neutralized a trio of Iskander missiles in less than an hour, demonstrating air defense capabilities far beyond Putin's expectations. Ukraine knows it's more effective to destroy Iskander missiles at their base than to waste costly air defense missiles. That is a direct retaliation against the bases Russia is using to spread terror among the Ukrainian people. When these fire bases collapse, the Kremlin will see its counterattack options gradually narrow. Fewer Iskander missile launchers mean that air raids become more predictable and easier for Ukraine to thwart. This is not a random massacre, but a cold strategic calculation. Ukraine targets every strike at key vulnerabilities. To achieve these resounding victories, Ukraine spent months persistently wearing down Russia's air defense network in Crimea, and April 16th marked the climax of that effort. Not stopping at the Iskander bases, the Ukrainian military also wiped out the Panzer's air defense system in Feodosia and a strategic ammunition depot of the Black Sea Fleet in Maziria. Each destroyed air defense system is a deadly gap in Russia's shield, making this already tactically paralyzed fleet even more desperate due to the loss of valuable ammunition resupply. But the most painful blow is not just about missiles or ammunition. Ukraine has targeted the lifeblood of the war machine, those massive oil depots. Red flames have swept the peninsula as oil depots are repeatedly attacked. Behind the achievements in Crimea is the 9th Battalion of the 414th Brigade. They are the ones who directly turned the 2 oil depots, Hliba and Oktyabsky, into massive fireballs. This is part of a strategy to strangle logistics, leaving the Russian military without fuel to move and cutting off the flow of money from oil exports. Ukraine's fury is not limited to the Black Sea, but has also spread to the Baltic Sea, where Russian oil and gas infrastructure has been burning for weeks. 2 days after Crimea was shaken, the port of Vysotsk in the Leningrad region suffered the same fate, showing that Russia is running out of options to transport its strategic resources. Ukraine's persistence is also demonstrated through its classic follow-up strike tactics. On April 18th, a series of loud explosions once again shook the port city of Sevastopol, which was once the pride of the Black Sea Fleet before they had to retreat due to relentless attacks. The oil depots here have become targets for unmanned aerial vehicles with absolute precision. Ukraine did not just strike once and stop. They delivered additional deadly blows to the same target to send a strong message to Putin. All defensive efforts and Russia's most valuable assets have failed. When Ukraine's drones break through the air defense net, the aftermath is always devastation. The loss of the Black Sea Fleet's last ammunition depot on April 16 marked the end of Russia's military presence there. In an era where unmanned aerial vehicles can crush naval superiority, does Russia still need a useless fleet? While Russian military commanders in the occupied territories are still exhausted from continuous attacks, another nightmare has struck. In Zaporizhia, a key area in Russia's spring offensive plan, the Buk-1 air defense system in Bativka was destroyed. According to common patterns, when an air defense unit is wiped out, it's a sign that Ukraine is clearing the way to attack a more important target just behind it. Forcing the M1 out of the game opened up a safe flight corridor for difficult missions. And as the smoke temporarily settled over the occupied areas, Ukraine suddenly played one last card on April 16th. This time, the target was inside Russian territory in Krasnodar Krai near the settlement of Tuap. Robert Brobdy, commander of Ukraine's unmanned systems forces, initially kept the information secret, but what was revealed later turned out to be a real disaster for Russia. In Tuap, a massive Rosneft oil refinery, one of the 10 largest in Russia, turned into a blazing volcano that could be clearly seen from the Black Sea. Despite Governor Vladimir Kondratiev's reassurances that the damage was only caused by drone debris, the reality painted a completely different picture. Those fragments caused massive fires, crippling a facility that produces 12 million tons of oil per year, accounting for 10% of Russia's total oil exports. History's irony is that those fragments fell with nearly unbelievable precision. Those terrifying 24 hours ended with an unmistakable message. Ukraine has elevated the strategy of mid-range attacks to a new level. There is no longer any place that is safe for Russia. Every target, even those deep in the rear areas, is now within reach. All these victories are not by chance. Brobdy revealed an important piece of information. Ukraine has established a new deep strike center, which is part of the unmanned systems force. This center is designed to integrate long-range operations targeting high-value objectives, with smooth coordination between various units. This is exactly why 16 targets were eliminated so effectively on April 16th. Although the technical details are still kept secret in preparation for the next strikes, it's clear that Ukraine now possesses medium-range strike capabilities that they never had in the earlier stages of the war. The era of deep strikes has begun, and Russia is bleeding because of it. According to a report from the Atlantic Council, Ukraine began a well-coordinated effort to fill this gap at the beginning of 2025 by developing a medium-range strike campaign targeting objectives within a range of 20 to 300 kilometers. Command posts, warehouses, air defense systems, missile complexes, and more have become targets of this new campaign. And let's see, what we witnessed on April 16th completely matches that list of strategic targets. Ukraine has quietly built up a stockpile of medium-range aerial systems that is much cheaper than long-range variants, but still powerful enough to deliver lightning strikes to Russia's near-rear areas. The past year has been a historic turning point. From March 2025 to March 2026, Ukraine carried out a total of 365 medium-range strikes, which means an average of one attack every day without pause. The Atlantic Council also stated that half of those attacks were directly focused on Russian air defense systems in the occupied territories. Now, as we have entered April 2026, what we are witnessing is a fierce escalation of the medium-range strategy that began a year ago. There is a clear tactical reason explaining why half of the raids so far, as well as the latest battles, have targeted Russia's air defense network. This is a consistent and persistent campaign by Ukraine to break the protective shield around the strategic assets that Russia has established. Each air defense system that is taken down opens up a wide corridor leading to higher value targets, from oil depots and drone control centers to ammunition storage facilities. All of them have been destroyed because Ukraine has adopted a calculated approach in its mid-range strategy. This technology has undergone years of development, and now is the time for it to shine the brightest against the backdrop of a sky filled with smoke and fire. For Russia, this is news that couldn't be worse. That means the kill zones, which have already crushed the Russian army with unimaginable casualties, have now been expanded in scale. At the beginning of 2025, Russian soldiers had to face extreme terror as the kill zones, densely packed with Ukrainian drones, stretched up to 50 kilometers behind the front lines. That means any infantry unit would have to cross a hellish landscape filled with charred vehicle wrecks and the bodies of their comrades just to get close enough to fire at the Ukrainian lines. But now, with the advent of medium-range drones, these kill zones have tripled in size. The troops resting in the rear are now also becoming targets. They are destroyed before they even set foot in the original kill zone, creating a multi-layered drone-based defense strategy that Russia is completely powerless to solve. This campaign seems to have no end, and it is starting to create serious problems for Putin. The Institute for the Study of War reported on April 17th that dissatisfaction in Russian society is rising because of the huge sacrifices demanded by Putin's war. The Institute for the Study of War cited survey results from the All-Russian Public Opinion Research Center, a state-owned polling agency. That poll recorded a serious decline in support for Putin for 6 consecutive weeks. From 72.9%, this figure has dropped to 66.7% in just over a month. After what Ukraine did on April 16, we can imagine that this approval rating will continue to decline, especially in Tuap, where the oil refinery is still burning fiercely. That's Ukraine's main objective. This mid-range campaign aims to not only destroy weapons, but also significantly weaken Russia. Wiping out strategic assets deep behind the front lines makes Russia's attacks at the front weak and disjointed. The inevitable result of that weakening is increased casualties, forcing the Kremlin to keep pushing more Russian people into the endless meat grinder. After 4 years of fighting, the Russian people seem to be reaching their limit. That is the true genius in Ukraine's strategy. If Putin is blinded by his ambition to occupy Ukraine to the point of refusing to stop a war that has caused so much damage to the country, then perhaps it will be the Russian people themselves who will force this war to end. Even Russian state-run polling companies are showing increasing outrage. Remember, these are numbers that have been manipulated to look as good as possible in the eyes of the Kremlin. As Ukraine continues to destroy the Russian military, discontent will erupt and Putin may find himself facing another war, this time from within Russia itself. That could be the war that Putin can never win. And on the front lines, we are witnessing a war that Putin is also losing. Putin's grand plans for 2026 are collapsing all around him. In your opinion, with Ukraine's current powerful medium-range strike capabilities, can Ukraine force Russia to the negotiating table in 2026? Amid battlefield pressure and growing internal discontent, what will be the last straw for Putin's government?